It's really important to not get carried away when a team or a player gets off to a hot start through the first two games of the season. We saw that last year when the New Orleans Saints started 2-0 and scored 40 points in each of their first two games. And people are like, hey, they haven't done this since this or this. Two games is an indication of people have tape on you, right? So now, okay, after two games, we kind of know who you are unless there's been massive changeover. So the third game is really where things settle in, and the Saints, of course, fell apart last year. And that's what makes what we saw from Indiana Jones, so significant on Sunday. Yes, they were playing the Tennessee Titans. I understand that, who are still looking for their first win on the season. But Daniel Jones and company did it again. They didn't punt until midway through the first half. That's the longest stretch in the Super Bowl era for any team to start a season without a single punt. And a big reason why is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones continues to play next level quarterback, okay? In this game, he was 18 to 25, 228 yards, one touchdown, and more importantly, no interception. Why is that no interception important? Well, here's the list of quarterbacks in the history of the Indianapolis Colts / Baltimore Colts that went 3-0 to start a season and didn't have a single turnover. Daniel Jones, that's it. He's the only quarterback in the history of the Colts to start a season 3 straight wins and not have a single giveaway or turnover in those 3 games. Not Peyton Manning, not Andrew Luck, not anybody else. It's Daniel Jones. And what Daniel Jones and the Colts have figured out is that complementary football works. You don't have to do everything if you're Daniel Jones. You just have to do enough. And again, 18 to 25, didn't turn the ball over, 228 yards. Also ran 4 times for 27 yards and trucked a couple of Tennessee defenders, and that allowed everything else to happen. You look at what happens with Jonathan Taylor, 17 carries, 102 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. All Daniel Jones has to do is not mess it up. And he's doing an amazing job of not messing it up. And people say, well, I need my quarterback to make spectacular plays. You don't, actually. You just need to make sure you avoid losing plays. Quarterbacks are essentially paid and respected for doing 3 things well. 3 things. Number 1, can you win on third down? Can you keep the chains moving? Can you keep the drive alive? Daniel Jones has proven through 3 games he can do that. Number 2, when you get inside the red zone, inside the 20-yard line, can you convert points? And more specifically, can you convert drives into touchdowns instead of field goals? Daniel Jones has done that very, very well. The other thing, it's just as important, is execute in the 2-minute drill, either at the end of the first half or at the end of the game. Daniel Jones hasn't had to worry much about the end of the game, but in the one situation where he did last week against the Denver Broncos, he put him in a chance to get to a field goal that would have won the game. Then the Broncos committed the leverage penalty, which allowed them to re-kick from 15 yards closer, and that's what happened. Daniel Jones is proving that you don't have to be this knowing, all-encompassing, incredibly athletic quarterback. You just have to play smart. You have to work with the system around you, and you have to make the plays when they come to you. The Colts are off to their best start now, 3-0, since 2009, when Peyton Manning led them to the AFC Championship and a Super Bowl 44 in Miami, where they lost to the Saints 31-17. That was, of course, up until recent memory, the greatest onside kick in Super Bowl history, or in the NFL history, where the Saints started the second half with a surprise onside kick, which you can't do anymore. Hate that rule. Hate that rule. We have to tell you when you're kicking off an onside now, which is ridiculous, and led them to that win. But that's where we are with Daniel Jones. And, when Daniel Jones was named the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, I got a lot of people telling me. First of all, I said it was the right decision because Shane Steichen has to win games if he wants to keep his job as a head coach. And he's doing a great job at winning games. They're off to a 3-0 start. Again, last time they did this, 2009, when Peyton Manning was under center. So he has found a way, a secret formula of success with Daniel Jones to find a way to win games. So when it was Anthony Richardson, who was not going to be the starting quarterback this year after being taken number 1 overall, very high, not 1 overall, but their top draft choice, top 5 pick a few seasons ago. People were like, they're giving up too quickly on Anthony Richardson. And I was like, no, they're not giving up too quickly on Anthony Richardson, because if they keep sticking with Anthony Richardson, who can't complete 50% of his passes, you're looking for 100% unemployment by the Indianapolis coaching staff. They had to go with Daniel Jones, and their patience in Daniel Jones has been rewarded with the way he's playing. See, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest and the strongest and the fastest and the most explosive if you can't play the position. And right now in his career, it's been established that up to this point, Anthony Richardson can't play the position. Daniel Jones can play the position. And when you look at all his struggles in New York when he was with the Giants, a lot of them had to do with the bad offensive line and turnover issues, specifically fumbles as much as interceptions. Well, he has found a way to limit those things in a situation in Indianapolis where he finds himself with a really good offensive line, a lot of weapons around him, like we mentioned, including the running back Jonathan Taylor, a good core of wideouts, a great young tight end in Tyler Warren that they got in the draft this past year, and a defense that can choke out an opposition's offense. And when you put Daniel Jones in that kind of situation, it's amazing how good someone can be. Now, look, we're not suggesting that Daniel Jones is going to keep this up for 17 straight games and the Colts are going 17-0. That's not the point. The point is you have to find a way to be competitive in every game. And look, you look around the league, we see tons of reclamation projects that have worked out. Baker Mayfield has found a home in Tampa Bay. He is absolutely balling out again there for a third straight season, after bouncing around from the Browns to being a scout team defensive end for the Carolina Panthers and a very short stay with the Los Angeles Rams, where he led them to an amazing win in a Thursday night game over the Raiders without really knowing any of the playbook. What Sam Darnold is doing in Seattle after doing it well in Minnesota, after flaming out with the Jets. You can have success in a second act. So Anthony Richardson, that success may come for you, but I'm not sure it's going to be coming where you were drafted, because Daniel Jones is still only a 2019 draft pick. You know, he was taken in the first round of 2019. He's still a relatively young guy. And oh, by the way, we talk about the symbiotic relationship between a quarterback and an offensive coordinator. Well, the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts is a very unsung hero in all of this. And he has one of the greatest names in all of football. It is the legendary Jim Bob Cooter. And Jim Bob has had success in a couple of places around the NFL before landing in Indianapolis, and he's been there a couple of years. And clearly, the combination of Daniel Jones getting a better team around him, Daniel Jones fixing his problem of not turning the ball over, and relying on everybody else to help you win games is a miraculous recipe. This is why I say all the time, wins and losses are not quarterback stats. Now, a quarterback can impact your ability to win more than any other position in football, and maybe any other position in team sports in this country. But at the end of the day, everyone else has to contribute. And what are we seeing now with the way these Indianapolis Colts are built? We have a running game. We have a bevy of wide receivers that can make plays for us. We have a decent kicker. We have a coaching staff that's doing things the right way. You know, so many of these young quarterbacks get into situations where they're not coached well. And that creates problems, and then you bounce around and you go from place to place to place. Sometimes you just need a change of scenery. You know, Daniel Jones was recently asked, what's it like coming from New York to Indianapolis? And he sort of chuckled and said, yeah, it's a slower pace around here, and I like that, and that's okay. You know, Daniel Jones was a quiet kid who played his college ball at Duke. We're not talking about when Eli Manning went from Oxford and the Manning family legacy to New York. Eli had been preparing for that his entire career with what his bigger brother did, Peyton, and before them, the father, the patriarch of the family, Archie. He knew what he was getting into. Sometimes when you're a quarterback from Duke and you're thrust into the spotlight of New York City and one or two things go the wrong way, it's easy to blame everything on the quarterback, but it's everything that might be around him. And oh, by the way, look at all the success that Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, is having with the Indianapolis Colts. Things aren't going so well for the Giants right now, are they? they continue to struggle. So sometimes we think the problem is one thing, and it might actually be the other. And one thing we can say with great certainty so far into this season, Daniel Jones is not the problem for the Indianapolis Colts. Indiana Jones might actually be the solution and not the problem. And that's straight facts, homie. Like and subscribe.